Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty watching the stars through the main screen. His ship was one of the last big warships humans had left. The war with the Zephyrian Empire was going badly, very badly. "Sir, we lost another ship today," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her communication station. Her voice was quiet and sad. "The USS Freedom went down near the asteroid belt. No survivors." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. That was the 5th ship they had lost this month. The Zephyrians were too good at hiding their ships. They would appear out of nowhere, attack, and disappear before humans could fight back. Their stealth technology was far better than anything humans had. "How many crew members did we lose?" Jake asked. 327, Amy replied. Jake felt sick. Those were good people, friends, fellow humans fighting for their homes and families. The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew the war was almost over, and humans were losing. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez walked onto the bridge. His face looked tired and angry. "Captain, we need to talk about this crazy idea from Dr. Ross." Jake knew what Tony meant. Dr. Helen Ross was the ship's doctor who helped people with their feelings and thoughts. She had come up with a strange plan to help the crew feel better. "She wants to bring a cat on board," Tony continued. "A house cat. For morale, she says. Sir, with respect, we are fighting for our lives here. We don't have room for pets." Jake had been thinking about this for days. The crew was losing hope. After the Battle of Kepler Station, where they lost so many ships and friends, everyone seemed broken inside. They did their jobs, but the spark was gone. The will to fight was disappearing. "Where is Dr. Ross now?" Jake asked. "In her office, sir. She's waiting to talk to you about it." Jake nodded. "Amy, you have the bridge. Tony, come with me." They walked through the corridors of the Liberty. The ship was huge, with over 800 crew members, but it felt empty now. People moved quietly, not talking much. The laughter and jokes that used to fill the halls were gone. Dr. Ross was a kind woman in her 50s. She had helped many crew members deal with the stress of war. When Jake and Tony entered her office, she was reading reports on her computer. "Captain, thank you for coming," she said, standing up. "I know this seems like a strange time to talk about bringing an animal on board." "It does seem strange, Doctor," Jake replied. "Tell me why you think this will help." Dr. Ross pulled up some files on her screen. "I've been studying the crew's mental health. Depression is up 60%. Sleep problems are affecting half the ship. People are losing the will to fight. We need something to give them hope again." "And you think a cat will do that?" Tony asked. He sounded like he thought the idea was stupid. "Studies from old Earth show that animals help people feel better," Dr. Ross explained. "They reduce stress. They give people something to care about besides war and death. Sailors used to bring cats on ships hundreds of years ago." Jake thought about this. He remembered his grandmother's cat when he was young. The orange tabby used to sleep on his bed and purr. It made him feel safe and happy. "What kind of cat are we talking about?" Jake asked. "There's a cat at Earth Station 7. His name is Whiskers. He's an orange tabby, 3 years old. He was the mascot for a cargo ship until they got reassigned. He's friendly and calm." Tony shook his head. "Captain, this is not practical. We're fighting a war. Every resource matters. Food, water, air, space. We can't waste them on a pet." "The cat won't use much," Dr. Ross said quickly. "And I think the benefits will be huge. The crew needs something good in their lives. Something pure and innocent that reminds them what they're fighting for." Jake walked to the window and looked out at space. So many empty areas where their ships used to be. So many friends gone forever. Maybe Dr. Ross was right. Maybe they did need something to remind them why they were fighting. There are other species on this ship, Tony pointed out. The Karathi and Vexians fighting with us. What will they think about humans bringing a useless animal to war? That was true. The Liberty had crew members from 2 alien species that were helping humans fight the Zephyrians. The Karathi looked like tall, thin lizards. They were peaceful. People who were good at fixing things. The Vexians looked more like humans, but with blue skin and big black eyes. They were very logical and smart. I've talked to some of them, Dr. Ross said. They don't understand it, but they respect human customs. Ambassador Zektar from the Karathi said humans do many strange things, and this is just one more. Jake smiled a little. That sounded like something Zektar would say. The Karathi ambassador was always confused by human emotions and behavior. Captain, Amy Carter's voice came through the communication system. We have a supply shuttle coming in. From Earth Station 7. They're asking about special cargo. Jake looked at Dr. Ross, then at Tony. The engineer still looked unhappy about the whole idea. Doctor, if this cat causes any problems, any at all, it goes back on the next shuttle. Understood? Yes, sir. Dr. Ross smiled big. And Tony, I want you to make sure we have everything the cat needs. Food, a clean place to live, medical care. Tony sighed. Yes, sir, but I still think this is crazy. 2 hours later, Jake stood in the shuttle bay watching the supply ship dock. Inside that shuttle was either the stupidest decision he had ever made as a captain or something that might help save his crew's spirit. The shuttle doors opened. A young pilot came out carrying a small cage. Inside was an orange cat with white paws and a white chest. The cat looked around with bright green eyes, not seeming scared at all. This is Whiskers, the pilot said, handing the cage to Dr. Ross. He's been traveling in space his whole life. Very calm, very friendly. As if to prove the point, Whiskers meowed softly and pushed his head against the cage bars. Several crew members had gathered to see the new arrival. Jake heard someone laugh for the first time in weeks. Amy Carter was the first to put her finger through the bars. Whiskers rubbed his head against it and purred. "Oh my God, he's so cute," she said. More crew members came over. Even some of the Karathi and Vexians were watching with interest. Zektar tilted his head to one side, the way his species did when they were confused. "This small predator will improve human fighting ability?" he asked Dr. Ross. "Not fighting ability," she replied. "Fighting spirit." As they walked to the area Dr. Ross had prepared for Whiskers, Jake noticed something. People were smiling. For the first time in months, there was something good happening on his ship. Maybe this wasn't such a crazy idea after all. 3 weeks had passed since Whiskers arrived on the USS Liberty. The orange cat had made himself at home in the recreation area that Dr. Ross had set up for him. The crew loved him. Even the aliens were starting to understand why humans found the cat comforting. Ensign Ryan Cooper had become Whiskers' main caretaker. The young officer was only 22 years old, fresh from the academy. Taking care of the cat gave him something positive to focus on instead of the war. "He's really smart," Ryan told Amy Carter as they watched Whiskers play with a toy mouse. "Watch this." Ryan pointed to different objects around the room. "Whiskers, ball." The cat looked at the red ball. "Whiskers, water." The cat looked at his water bowl. "Whiskers, food." The cat ran to his food dish and meowed. "That's amazing," Amy said. "How long did it take to teach him that?" "That's the weird part," Ryan replied. He just started doing it on his own, like he was learning our language. Commander. Lisa Park walked into the recreation area. She was Captain Morrison's second in command, a serious woman who didn't smile much. At first, she had thought bringing a cat to war was the dumbest thing she had ever heard, but even she had to admit the crew seemed happier. "How's our four-legged crew member today?" she asked. "Good, ma'am," Ryan said, "but he's been doing some strange things." "What kind of strange things?" Amy pulled out her tablet computer. She had been keeping notes about Whisker's behavior. "He keeps staring at empty spaces, like he sees something we don't. And yesterday he wouldn't go down Corridor 7 on Deck 3. He just sat at the entrance and hissed." "Cats do weird things," Commander Park said. "That's normal for them." "Maybe," Amy replied, "but I've been around cats my whole life. This feels different." As if he knew they were talking about him, Whiskers suddenly stood up. His ears went back and his tail got big and fluffy. He was looking at the wall behind Amy. "What's wrong, boy?" Ryan asked, kneeling down next to the cat. Whiskers backed away from the wall, making a low, growling sound. The fur on his back was standing up. He looked scared and angry at the same time. "There's nothing there," Commander Park said, looking at the wall. It was just a normal metal wall like everywhere else on the ship. But Whiskers kept staring and growling. Then he did something none of them expected. He ran to the communication panel and started pawing at it, meowing loudly. "It's like he's trying to tell us something," Amy said. Ryan picked up the cat to calm him down, but Whiskers jumped out of his arms and ran to the door. He sat there meowing and looking back at them. "I think he wants us to follow him," Amy said. They followed Whiskers through the corridors of the ship. The cat moved with purpose, like he knew exactly where he was going. He led them to the engineering section, then stopped at a maintenance panel. Whiskers sat in front of the panel and meowed loudly. He pawed at the metal covering. "What is it, Whiskers?" Ryan asked. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez was working nearby. He heard the commotion and came over. "What's the cat doing down here?" "He led us here," Amy explained. "He seems upset about this panel." Tony looked at the panel. It was just a standard maintenance access point. "There's nothing special about this, just some power cables and data lines." But Whiskers wouldn't stop meowing and pawing at the panel. Finally, Tony sighed and opened it up. Inside were the usual cables and connections. Everything looked normal. "See? Nothing wrong here," Tony said. Whiskers jumped up and put his paws on Tony's leg, meowing even louder. "Wait," Amy said, looking closer. "What's that small box? Is that supposed to be there?" Tony looked where she was pointing. There was a small metal device attached to one of the data cables. It was about the size of a coin and very thin. "That's not one of ours," Tony said quietly. His face went pale. "That's not human technology." Commander Park immediately called security. Within minutes, the area was full of armed crew members. The small device was carefully removed and taken to the science lab. Dr. Ross arrived to check on Whiskers. The cat had calmed down as soon as the strange device was removed. "How did he know?" Ryan asked, petting Whiskers. "How did he know something was wrong?" "Cats have very good senses," Dr. Ross said. "They can smell and hear things we can't. Maybe he detected something we missed." 2 hours later, Captain Morrison called a meeting in the conference room. The senior officers gathered around the table. Whiskers was there too, sitting calmly in Ryan's lap. "The device was Zephyrian," Captain Morrison said. "A listening device. It was recording all our communications and sending them to enemy ships." Everyone was quiet. The Zephyrians had been spying on them. That explained how the Enemy always seemed to know where human ships would be. How long was it there? Commander Park asked. At least 6 months, said Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake from the Intelligence Department. Maybe longer. It was very well hidden. Our scanners couldn't detect it. But Whiskers could, Amy said, scratching the cat's head. It seems that way, Captain Morrison agreed. The question is, how many more of these devices are on the ship? Over the next few days, Whiskers was taken all around the Liberty. The cat seemed to understand what they wanted him to do. He would sniff and listen carefully in each area. When he found something suspicious, he would sit down and meow. They found 12 more Zephyrian spy devices. Some were in the engine room. Others were in the weapons control center. One was even in Captain Morrison's private quarters. This is incredible, said Dr. Ross. Whiskers can detect their technology when our best equipment can't. The Karathi ambassador, Zektar, was very confused by all this. The small predator has abilities your machines do not have? He asked Captain Morrison. It seems that way, Jake replied. This is not logical, said Vexian science officer Talara. Her blue face wrinkled as she tried to understand. How can a primitive animal be superior to advanced technology? Maybe that's exactly why, Amy suggested. The Zephyrians designed their spy devices to fool our technology. They didn't think about fooling a cat. Word spread quickly through the ship about Whiskers' amazing ability. The crew was excited and amazed. Their cat wasn't just good for morale anymore. He was helping them fight the war. But the real test came during their next patrol mission. The Liberty was escorting a supply convoy through dangerous space when Whiskers suddenly became very agitated. The cat was in the recreation area with Ryan when he started hissing and growling at nothing. His fur stood up, and he ran in circles, meowing. Loudly, "Something's wrong," Ryan said into his communicator. "Whiskers is acting like he did when he found the spy devices." Captain Morrison was on the bridge when he got the message. "All stations, red alert," he ordered. "Sensors, full scan. Look for anything unusual." "Sensors show nothing, sir," reported the officer at the scanning station. But Whiskers was still going crazy in the recreation area. Dr. Ross and Amy had joined Ryan, trying to figure out what the cat was sensing. "He's looking up," Amy noticed, "like something is above us." Captain Morrison trusted his crew, and after finding all those spy devices, he was starting to trust Whiskers, too. "Helm, emergency dive," he ordered. "Down 30 degrees, maximum speed." The Liberty suddenly dropped. Down and to the side, just as 3 Zephyrian attack ships appeared out of nowhere, firing their weapons where the Liberty had been seconds before. "Enemy ships!" the scanning officer yelled. "They were cloaked!" The battle was quick and fierce, but because Whiskers had warned them, the Liberty was ready. They destroyed 2 enemy ships and drove off the 3rd. After the fight, Captain Morrison went to the recreation area. Whiskers was calm now, purring as Ryan petted him. "Good job, Whiskers," Jake said, scratching the cat's ears. "You saved us, all." The cat just purred louder and closed his green eyes, happy to be petted. Later that night, Jake stood on the bridge looking at the stars. Commander Park joined him. "Sir, I owe you an apology," she said. "I thought bringing a cat to war was stupid. I was wrong." "We were all wrong," Jake replied. "Whiskers isn't just a pet. He's part of the crew now, a very important part." From that day on, everything changed on the USS Liberty. They had found their secret weapon against the Zephyrians, and it was an orange tabby cat who just wanted to be loved and petted. The war was far from over, but for the first time in months, Jake Morrison felt like they might actually have a chance to win. News about the USS Liberty's Miracle Cat spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Admiral Beth Collins, the fleet commander, called Captain Morrison for a private video conference 3 days after the convoy incident. "Jake, I'm hearing some crazy stories about your ship," Admiral Collins said. Her face looked tired on the screen. She had been fighting this war longer than anyone. "Please tell me you haven't lost your mind." "Admiral, I know how it sounds," Jake replied. "But Whiskers has saved us twice now. He can detect Zephyrian stealth technology when our sensors can't." Admiral Collins rubbed her forehead. "A cat, Jake. You're telling me a house cat is better than our 1,000,000-credit sensor arrays." "That's exactly what I'm telling you. This is ridiculous. We're losing the war, and you're playing with pets." But before Jake could answer, Lieutenant Amy Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain Morrison to the recreation area immediately. Whiskers is doing it again." Jake looked at the screen. "Admiral, would you like to see for yourself?" They hurried to the recreation area where Whiskers was having another episode. The orange cat was pacing back and forth, hissing at the ceiling. His tail was big and fluffy, and his ears were flat against his head. "How long has he been like this?" Jake asked Ryan Cooper. "About 5 minutes," Ryan replied. "He was sleeping, then suddenly jumped up and started acting scared." Dr. Ross was there too, watching the cat carefully. "His behavior is identical to the previous incidents. Something is making him very nervous." Jake turned to the communication screen where Admiral Collins was watching. "Admiral, are you seeing this?" "I see a scared cat," she replied. "What am I supposed to be looking for?" "Bridge to Captain Morrison," came another voice over the intercom. "We're getting strange readings from the long-range sensors. Very faint, but there's something out there." Jake and Admiral Collins exchanged looks. "How faint?" Jake asked. "Barely detectable, sir. If we weren't looking for it, we would have missed it completely." Whiskers suddenly stopped pacing and sat down. He stared directly at one section of the ceiling, his green eyes wide and focused. "That direction?" Jake said, pointing where Whiskers was looking. "Whatever it is, it's in that direction." The bridge crew adjusted their sensors to focus on that exact area. After several minutes of scanning, they found it. A Zephyrian scout ship, almost perfectly hidden by their stealth technology. "My God," Admiral Collins whispered over the video link. "The cat detected it before our sensors did. They watched the scout ship on their screens. It was just sitting there, probably observing the Liberty and reporting back to the Zephyrian fleet." "Shall we attack, sir?" asked Commander Park. "No," Jake said. "Let's see what else Whiskers can tell us." Over the next hour, they followed Whiskers around the ship. The cat led them to different areas, always seeming to know where the hidden enemy ship was located. Amy Carter worked with the bridge crew to track the patterns. "He's not just detecting one ship," Amy realized. "Look at his behavior changes, different types of hissing, different body positions. I think there are multiple ships out there." They spent hours carefully scanning space, using Whiskers' reactions as a guide. By the end of the day, they had found 5 Zephyrian ships hiding in the area. A whole squadron that would have attacked them without warning. Admiral Collins was quiet for a long time after seeing the results. Finally, she spoke. "Jake, I want you to bring Whiskers to Fleet Headquarters. We need to understand how this is possible." "With respect, Admiral, Whiskers belongs here with his crew, but I'll send all our data and Dr. Ross can explain everything." "Fine. But Jake?" Admiral Collins paused. "Good work. For the first time in months, we might have an advantage." The next few weeks were busy on the Liberty. Scientists from all over the human fleet came to study Whiskers. They did tests and scans trying to understand how a simple house cat could do what their best technology couldn't. Professor Alan Chen was the head scientist. He was a small man with thick glasses who studied alien biology. He spent hours watching Whiskers and taking notes. "Fascinating," he said to Dr. Ross. "Cats have whiskers that can detect the smallest air movements. Their inner ears are incredibly sensitive to vibrations, and their eyes can see kinds of light that humans can't." "But how does that help them find invisible spaceships?" Ryan asked. He was always with Whiskers during the tests, making sure the cat wasn't scared or uncomfortable. "The Zephyrian stealth technology works by bending light and energy around their ships," Professor Chen explained, "but it still creates tiny disturbances in space, quantum fluctuations that our machines can barely detect. And cats can sense those?" Amy asked. "It appears so. Millions of years of evolution made cats perfect hunters. They can detect the smallest changes in their environment. What we see as empty space, Whiskers sees as full of information." Chief Petty Officer Mike Santos, the ship's security chief, had an idea. "If Whiskers can find hidden enemy ships, maybe we can train him to help us in combat." Dr. Ross wasn't sure about this. "He's not a weapon, Chief. He's an animal who wants to be loved and cared for." "I'm not talking about hurting him," Mike said. "Quickly. But maybe we can work with his natural instincts." They started simple training exercises. Mike would hide small objects around the ship, and Whiskers would find them. The cat seemed to enjoy the game. Soon, he was finding things that were almost impossible for humans to detect. But the real breakthrough came during a battle simulation. The Liberty was practicing combat maneuvers when Zephyrian ships attacked for real. It wasn't a drill this time. Whiskers was in the recreation area when the attack began. He immediately started his warning behavior, but this time it was different. Instead of just sitting and meowing, he ran around the room in specific patterns. Amy was watching him. "He's not just warning us," she realized. "He's showing us something." She tracked Whiskers' movements on her computer. The cat would run to one side of the room, hiss and growl, then run to another spot and do the same thing. "Captain," Amy called over the intercom, "Whiskers is showing us where the enemy ships are. Multiple contacts, different directions." Using the cat's information, the Liberty was able to target all the hidden Zephyrian ships at once. It was the first time humans had won a battle so decisively. After the fight, Whiskers was exhausted. He curled up in Ryan's lap and slept for hours. The young ensign petted him gently. "You did good, boy," Ryan whispered. "You saved us again." Word of the victory spread to other human ships. Captain Grace Miller of the USS Freedom sent a message asking if they could get a cat for their ship too. "We found some cats at the space station on Mars," her message said. "But they don't seem to have Whiskers' abilities. What makes him so special?" Dr. Ross had been thinking about this. "I think it's not just that he's a cat," she told Captain Morrison. "Whiskers was born and raised in space. He grew up around starships and energy fields. Maybe that made his senses even better." Professor Chen agreed. "Plus, he's been with humans his whole life. He understands us. He wants to help us. That emotional connection might be important too." The Zephyrians were starting to notice that something had changed. Their surprise attacks weren't working anymore, at least not against the Liberty. War Commander Thaxmore, who led the enemy forces in this sector, sent increasingly frustrated reports to his superiors. "The humans have developed some new detection system," one of his messages said. "Our stealth ships are being found and destroyed. We must discover their secret." But the Zephyrians couldn't imagine that the secret was a furry orange animal who liked to play with toy mice and sleep in sunny spots. On the Liberty, Whiskers was becoming a legend. Crew members would pet him for good luck before going on dangerous missions. The alien crew members, who had been confused at first, now treated the cat with great respect. Ambassador Zektar from the Karathi even brought Whiskers special fish from his home planet. "The small predator has earned honor in battle," he said formally. "It is right to give gifts to warriors." Whiskers just purred and rubbed against the tall alien's leg, making Zektar jump in surprise. But the war was far from over. The Zephyrians were adapting, trying new tactics, and soon they would discover that the humans' secret weapon was something they never could have imagined. Late at night, Jake Morrison would often visit the recreation area where Whiskers slept. The cat would open one green eye, purr softly, then go back to sleep. "Thank you, little friend," Jake would whisper. "You're saving more lives than you'll ever know." Outside the ship, the stars continued to shine. Somewhere out there, enemy ships were hiding, planning their next attack. But for the first time since the war began, Jake felt confident they would be ready. They had the best early warning system in the galaxy, and his name was Whiskers. 2 months after Whiskers first detected the Zephyrian spy devices, the USS Liberty had become the most successful ship in the human fleet. They hadn't lost a single battle since the cat arrived. Other ships were requesting their own feline crew members, but none of the other cats seemed to have Whiskers' special abilities. Professor Alan Chen had been studying the cat for weeks now. He had run every test he could think of, always being gentle and making sure Whiskers was comfortable. Ryan Cooper stayed with them during every examination. "I think I understand what's happening," Professor Chen announced during a meeting with Captain Morrison and the senior officers. Whiskers was there too, sitting on Amy Carter's lap and purring. "The Zephyrian stealth technology works by manipulating quantum fields," Professor Chen explained. "They create bubbles of altered space-time around their ships. To our sensors, it looks like empty space." "But not to Whiskers," Dr. Ross said, scratching the cat's head. "Exactly. Cats evolved to be perfect hunters. Their whiskers can detect air movements as small as a few molecules. Their inner ears can sense vibrations we can't even measure. Most importantly, their brains process this information in ways that are completely different from how we think." "Commander." Park leaned forward. "Are you saying the cat's brain works like a quantum computer?" "In a way, yes. When Whiskers senses those quantum disturbances, his brain doesn't try to understand what they are. It just knows something is wrong. Something dangerous is hiding there." Tony Martinez, who had originally opposed bringing a cat on board, shook his head in amazement. "So we accidentally brought the perfect weapon against Zephyrian technology." "Not a weapon," Dr. Ross corrected. "A partner." Captain Morrison looked at Whiskers, who was now asleep in Amy's arms. "Professor, can we train other cats to do what Whiskers does?" "We're trying. The other ships have had some success, but nothing like this. Whiskers is special. He's been around humans and spacecraft his entire life. He understands what we need." From him, the intercom crackled to life. "Captain Morrison to the bridge. Urgent message from Fleet Command." They hurried to the bridge where Admiral Collins appeared on the main screen. She looked excited for the first time since Jake had known her. "Jake, we're planning Operation Thunderstrike, the biggest offensive of the war. We're going to hit the Zephyrian home base in the Titan Nebula." "What do you need from us, Admiral?" "I want the Liberty to lead the attack. Whiskers will be our early warning system for the entire fleet." Jake felt the weight of responsibility. The Titan Nebula. was a huge cloud of gas and dust where the Zephyrians had built their strongest fortress. It would be the most dangerous mission of the war. "How many ships are we taking?" Commander Park asked. "Every ship we have left," Admiral Collins replied. 43 vessels. Everything depends on this working. Over the next week, the Liberty joined up with the rest of the human fleet. Jake had never seen so many ships together at once. Battleships, cruisers, fighters, and support vessels all floating together in space. Other captains came aboard the Liberty to meet Whiskers. They all wanted to see the famous cat who was helping win the war. Captain Grace Miller from the USS Freedom was amazed when she saw Whiskers playing with a toy mouse. "This little guy is our secret weapon?" she asked. "Don't let his size fool you," Amy said. "He's saved our lives more times than I can count." "We got 3 cats for our ship," Captain Miller said. "They're sweet, and the crew loves them. But they can't do what Whiskers does." Ryan Cooper was worried about bringing Whiskers into such a big battle. "What if something happens to him?" he asked Dr. Ross. "Whiskers will be in the safest part of the ship," she assured him, "and he'll have you with him the whole time." The night before the battle, Jake visited the recreation area, where Whiskers was sleeping in his favorite sunny spot. The cat opened his green eyes and stretched. "Tomorrow is the big day, little friend," Jake said softly. "A lot of people are counting on you." Whiskers jumped down from his sleeping spot and rubbed against Jake's leg, purring loudly. It was like he understood how important the next day would be. The fleet moved into the Titan Nebula slowly. The colorful gas clouds were beautiful, but they also hid dangers. Zephyrian ships could be anywhere in the swirling mists. Whiskers was in the recreation area with Ryan, Amy, and Dr. Ross. They had set up special communication equipment so the cat's warnings could be sent to all the ships in the fleet immediately. "Contact!" came the call from the bridge. Multiple Zephyrian ships, straight ahead. But Whiskers was already moving. He ran to different parts of the room, hissing and growling. Amy tracked his movements on her computer and sent the information to the bridge. "Whiskers is showing 17 enemy contacts," Amy reported. "The sensors only found 8. "Trust the cat," Captain Morrison ordered. "All ships, prepare for battle. Enemy positions being transmitted now." The battle was huge and fierce. Laser, beams, and missiles flew through space as both fleets fought desperately. But for the first time, the humans knew exactly where all the enemy ships were hiding. Whiskers never stopped moving during the fight. He would detect new threats and show the crew where they were. His information was sent to every ship in the human fleet. "This is incredible," came a message from Captain Miller. "We can see them coming before they attack. It's like having God's eye view of the battlefield." The Zephyrian commander, war leader Thaxmore, couldn't understand what was happening. His carefully planned ambush was failing completely. The humans were finding his hidden ships and destroying them one by one. "How are they doing this?" he screamed at his officers. "Our stealth technology is perfect. They should not be able to see us." But the humans could see them, thanks to one orange tabby cat who was working harder than he ever had in his life. After 6 hours of fighting, the battle was over. The human fleet had won a complete victory. The Zephyrian base in the Titan Nebula was destroyed, and most of their ships were gone. Whiskers collapsed from exhaustion in Ryan's arms. The young officer carried the cat to Dr. Ross, who checked him over carefully. "He's just tired," she said with relief. "He worked very hard today." The celebration throughout the fleet was enormous. For the first time in the war, humans had won a major battle. Ships sent messages of congratulations to the Liberty and their amazing cat. But the most important message came from Admiral Collins. Jake, intelligence reports that we captured the Zephyrian war plans. They were planning to attack Earth next month. Because of today's victory, that attack is impossible now. Jake felt tears in his eyes. Whiskers hadn't just helped them win a battle. He had saved Earth itself. Later that evening, Jake visited Whiskers in the medical bay, where Dr. Ross was keeping him overnight for observation. The cat was awake but tired, purring softly as Ryan petted him. "You did it, boy," Jake whispered. "You saved everyone." Whiskers just purred louder and closed his eyes contentedly. But the war wasn't over yet. The Zephyrian Emperor was furious about the defeat. He ordered his scientists to find out how the humans were detecting their ships. Zephyrian science leader Voxith studied all the battle reports. "The humans have developed some new technology," he told the Emperor. "Something that can detect our quantum stealth fields. Find out what it is," the Emperor ordered, "and destroy it." What the Zephyrians didn't know was that their greatest enemy was a small, furry animal who just wanted to play with toy mice and sleep in warm, sunny spots. The next phase of the war was about to begin, and Whiskers would be more important than ever. The victory at Titan Nebula changed everything. News of the human triumph spread across the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, people on Earth and the colonies felt hope again. But Emperor Zixtal of the Zephyrian Empire was not ready to give up. In his throne room on the capital world, he raged at his military commanders. "How did they defeat our greatest fleet?" he demanded. "Our stealth technology is perfect. No one should be able to detect our ships." War Commander Thaxmore, who had survived the battle, bowed his head in shame. "My Emperor, the humans have some new detection system. Our spies report they call it the Whiskers Protocol." Whiskers? The Emperor's voice was cold and dangerous. "What kind of weapon is this?" "We don't know, my lord. Our intelligence cannot discover what it is. The humans guard this secret very carefully." Science leader Voxith stepped forward. "My Emperor, I have studied all our battle records. The humans now detect our ships perfectly every time. Whatever this Whiskers protocol is, it has made our stealth advantage useless." Emperor Zixtal was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would end the war. "Gather every ship we have left," he ordered. "We will attack the human homeworld directly. If we destroy Earth, this war is over." Meanwhile, on the USS Liberty, Whiskers was recovering from his hard work at Titan Nebula. The cat had become even more famous throughout the human fleet. Ships everywhere now had cats as crew members, though none were quite as talented as Whiskers. Ryan Cooper spent most of his time taking care of the Orange. Tabby. The young officer had formed a special bond with the cat. "He's getting better at understanding what we need," Ryan told Dr. Ross. "Yesterday, he led me straight to a broken power coupling that our scanners missed." "Whiskers has learned to work with us," Dr. Ross agreed. "He knows he's part of the team." Captain Morrison was in his office working on reports when Amy Carter called from the bridge. "Captain, we're getting an urgent message from Earth. Priority 1. Jake hurried to the bridge where General Patricia Hayes, the Supreme Human Commander, appeared on the main screen. She looked very worried. "All ships, listen carefully," General Hayes said. "Our spies in Zephyrian space report that Emperor Zixtal is gathering every ship he has left. Intelligence believes they're planning to attack Earth directly." Jake felt his blood turn cold. Earth was home to 8 billion people. If the Zephyrians broke through the defenses— "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Maybe 2 weeks," General Hayes replied. Every human ship is being recalled to defend Earth. The Liberty will be part of the main defense fleet. Over the next week, human ships from across the galaxy rushed back to Earth. The planet's orbital defenses were strengthened, and every available fighter was prepared for battle. But everyone knew the truth. If the Zephyrians brought their full, remaining fleet, it would be the biggest space battle in history. And humans were still outnumbered. Whiskers seemed to sense the tension on the ship. The cat stayed close to Ryan and the other crew members, purring more than usual, as if trying to comfort them. "He knows something big is coming," Amy observed as she watched Whiskers sleep in his favorite sunny spot. Lieutenant Kevin Price, one of the Liberty's fighter pilots, had an idea. "What if we could take Whiskers on a scouting mission? He could help us find the enemy fleet before they reach Earth." Dr. Ross wasn't sure about this. Space fighters are very small. It would be dangerous for him. "I could modify one of the fighters," Chief Engineer Tony Martinez suggested. "Make it safe and comfortable for a cat." After much discussion, Captain Morrison agreed to the plan. Tony worked for 3 days straight, installing a special protected area in Kevin's fighter where Whiskers could sit safely. "It has its own air, supply and temperature control," Tony explained to Ryan, "and Whiskers will be strapped in securely." The night before the scouting mission, Ryan sat with Whiskers in the recreation area. "Tomorrow is going to be scary, boy," he said softly. "But you're the only one who can help us find the bad guys before they hurt Earth." Whiskers seemed to understand. He rubbed his head against Ryan's hand and purred. The next morning, Kevin and Whiskers launched in the modified fighter. They flew far ahead of the main fleet, searching for signs of the approaching Zephyrian force. For hours, space seemed empty. Then Whiskers suddenly became alert. His ears perked up and he stared intently in one direction. "Control, this is Scout 1, Kevin reported. "Whiskers is reacting to something. Bearing 27 Mark 4. Back on the Liberty, Amy tracked Whiskers' behavior through the fighter's cameras. "He's showing the same patterns as before. Multiple contacts, very large formation." Long-range sensors confirmed it. The entire Zephyrian fleet was approaching Earth, hidden by their stealth technology. Without Whiskers, they would have reached the planet undetected. "My God," breathed General Hayes when she saw the sensor readings. "There are over 300 ships. It's their entire remaining fleet. But thanks to Whiskers, the human fleet was ready. They positioned themselves perfectly to intercept the enemy before they could reach Earth." The Battle of Sol System began at dawn. It was the largest space battle ever fought, with over 500 ships from both sides. Whiskers and Kevin flew through the battle in their fighter, the cat continuously detecting hidden enemy ships and transmitting their positions to the human fleet. "Amazing," Kevin reported as Whiskers guided them past a cloaked Zephyrian destroyer. "He can see every one of them. It's like they're not even hidden." But in the middle of the battle, something unexpected happened. A Zephyrian assassin drone, designed to kill important human leaders, targeted Captain Morrison on the Liberty's bridge. The drone was completely invisible, even to Whiskers at first. But as it got closer to the ship, the cat suddenly went crazy in his special seat in Kevin's fighter. "Whiskers is having a major reaction," Kevin reported. "Something's very wrong near the Liberty." Amy was monitoring the communications. "Captain Morrison, get down!" she screamed over the intercom. Jake dropped to the floor just as the invisible drone fired where his head had been a second before. Security officers filled the bridge with weapons fire, destroying the drone. "How did you know?" Jake asked Amy. "Whiskers warned us," she replied simply. The battle raged for 8 hours, but with Whiskers detecting every hidden enemy ship, the humans gradually gained the upper advantage. One by one, the Zephyrian vessels were found and destroyed. Emperor Zixtal, commanding from his flagship, watched his fleet being destroyed with growing horror. "How are they doing this?" he screamed. "What is this Whiskers protocol?" Finally, only a few Zephyrian ships remained. Emperor Zixtal's flagship was surrounded and heavily damaged. "This is General Hayes to the Zephyrian Emperor," came the communication. "Surrender now, and your remaining crew will be spared." Emperor Zixtal was beaten, and he knew it. His mighty empire was finished. "I surrender," he said quietly. The war was over. Humanity had won. On the Liberty, the crew celebrated wildly, but the biggest celebration was in the recreation area, where Whiskers was surrounded by his human friends. "You did it, boy," Ryan said, tears in his eyes. "You saved Earth. You saved everyone." Whiskers just purred and rubbed against Ryan's legs, happy to be home with his family. 3 months later, a special ceremony was held on Earth. Whiskers became the first non-human to receive the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration. As Admiral Collins placed the medal around Whiskers' neck, she said, "This brave cat saved not just Earth, but the entire human species. We will never forget what he did." Whiskers purred loudly and tried to play with the shiny medal, making everyone laugh. Years later, cats became standard crew members on ships throughout the galaxy. The Whiskers protocol was taught at every military academy, and statues of an orange tabby cat were built on 100 worlds. But the real Whiskers lived happily on the Liberty for the rest of his life, playing with toy mice, sleeping in sunny spots, and being loved by the best crew in the galaxy. Ambassador Zektar from the Karathi species, who had been so confused by humans bringing a useless predator to war, finally understood. "Humans did not bring a pet to battle," he told his people. "They brought evolution's perfect hunter, and that hunter saved them all." In the end, the greatest weapon in the galaxy wasn't a laser cannon or a missile. It was love, instinct, and the bond between humans and their animal friends. The war was won by Whiskers the cat, and the galaxy was a better place because of it. The victory at Titan Nebula changed everything. News of the human triumph spread across the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, people on Earth and the colonies felt hope again. But Emperor Zixtal of the Zephyrian Empire was not ready to give up. In his throne room on the capital world, he raged at his military commanders. "How did they defeat our greatest fleet?" he demanded. "Our stealth technology is perfect. No one should be able to detect our ships." War Commander Thaxmore, who had survived the battle, bowed his head in shame. "My Emperor, the humans have some new detection system. Our spies report they call it the Whiskers Protocol." Whiskers? The Emperor's voice was cold and dangerous. "What kind of weapon is this?" "We don't know, my lord. Our intelligence cannot discover what it is. The humans guard this secret very carefully." Science leader Voxith stepped forward. "My Emperor, I have studied all our battle records. The humans now detect our ships perfectly every time. Whatever this Whiskers protocol is, it has made our stealth advantage useless." Emperor Zixtal was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would end the war. "Gather every ship we have left," he ordered. "We will attack the human homeworld directly. If we destroy Earth, this war is over." Meanwhile, on the USS Liberty, Whiskers was recovering from his hard work at Titan Nebula. The cat had become even more famous throughout the human fleet. Ships everywhere now had cats as crew members, though none were quite as talented as Whiskers. Ryan Cooper spent most of his time taking care of the orange, Tabby. The young officer had formed a special bond with the cat. "He's getting better at understanding what we need," Ryan told Dr. Ross. "Yesterday, he led me straight to a broken power coupling that our scanners missed." "Whiskers has learned to work with us," Dr. Ross agreed. "He knows he's part of the team." Captain Morrison was in his office working on reports when Amy Carter called from the bridge. "Captain, we're getting an urgent message from Earth. Priority 1. Jake hurried to the bridge where General Patricia Hayes, the Supreme Human Commander, appeared on the main screen. She looked very worried. "All ships." "Listen carefully," General Hayes said. "Our spies in Zephyrian space report that Emperor Zixtal is gathering every ship he has left. Intelligence believes they're planning to attack Earth directly." Jake felt his blood turn cold. Earth was home to 8 billion people. If the Zephyrians broke through the defenses— "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Maybe 2 weeks," General Hayes replied. "Every human ship is being recalled to defend Earth. The Liberty will be part of the main defense fleet. Over the next week, human ships from across the galaxy rushed back to Earth. The planet's orbital defenses were strengthened, and every available fighter was prepared for battle. But everyone knew the truth. If the Zephyrians brought their full, remaining fleet, it would be the biggest space battle in history. And humans were still outnumbered. Whiskers seemed to sense the tension on the ship. The cat stayed close to Ryan and the other crew members, purring more than usual, as if trying to comfort them. "He knows something big is coming," Amy observed as she watched Whiskers sleep in his favorite sunny spot. Lieutenant Kevin Price, one of the Liberty's fighter pilots, had an idea. "What if we could take Whiskers on a scouting mission? He could help us find the enemy fleet before they reach Earth." Dr. Ross wasn't sure about this. Space fighters are very small. It would be dangerous for him. "I could modify one of the fighters," Chief Engineer Tony Martinez suggested. "Make it safe and comfortable for a cat." After much discussion, Captain Morrison agreed to the plan. Tony worked for 3 days straight, installing a special protected area in Kevin's fighter where Whiskers could sit safely. "It has its own air, supply and temperature control," Tony explained to Ryan, "and Whiskers will be strapped in securely." The night before the scouting mission, Ryan sat with Whiskers in the recreation area. "Tomorrow is going to be scary, boy," he said softly. "But you're the only one who can help us find the bad guys before they hurt Earth." Whiskers seemed to understand. He rubbed his head against Ryan's hand and purred. The next morning, Kevin and Whiskers launched in the modified fighter. They flew far ahead of the main fleet, searching for signs of the approaching Zephyrian force. For hours, space seemed empty. Then Whiskers suddenly became alert. His ears perked up and he stared intently in one direction. "Control, this is Scout 1, Kevin reported. "Whiskers is reacting to something. Bearing 27 Mark 4. Back on the Liberty, Amy tracked Whiskers' behavior through the fighter's cameras. "He's showing the same patterns as before. Multiple contacts, very large formation." Long-range sensors confirmed it. The entire Zephyrian fleet was approaching Earth, hidden by their stealth technology. Without Whiskers, they would have reached the planet undetected. "My God," breathed General Hayes when she saw the sensor readings. "There are over 300 ships. It's their entire remaining fleet. But thanks to Whiskers, the human fleet was ready. They positioned themselves perfectly to intercept the enemy before they could reach Earth." The Battle of Sol System began at dawn. It was the largest space battle ever fought, with over 500 ships from both sides. Whiskers and Kevin flew through the battle in their fighter. the cat continuously detecting hidden enemy ships and transmitting their positions to the human fleet. "Amazing," Kevin reported as Whiskers guided them past a cloaked Zephyrian destroyer. "He can see every one of them. It's like they're not even hidden." But in the middle of the battle, something unexpected happened. A Zephyrian assassin drone, designed to kill important human leaders, targeted Captain Morrison on the Liberty's bridge. The drone was completely invisible, even to Whiskers at first. But as it got closer to the ship, the cat suddenly went crazy in his special seat in Kevin's fighter. "Whiskers is having a major reaction," Kevin reported. "Something's very wrong near the Liberty." Amy was monitoring the communications. "Captain, Morrison, get down!" she screamed over the intercom. Jake dropped to the floor just as the invisible drone fired where his head had been a second before. Security officers filled the bridge with weapons fire, destroying the drone. "How did you know?" Jake asked Amy. "Whiskers warned us," she replied simply. The battle raged for 8 hours, but with Whiskers detecting every hidden enemy ship, the humans gradually gained the upper advantage. One by one, the Zephyrian vessels were found and destroyed. Emperor Zixtal, commanding from his flagship, watched his fleet being destroyed with growing horror. "How are they doing this?" he screamed. "What is this Whiskers protocol?" Finally, only a few Zephyrian ships remained. Emperor Zixtal's flagship was surrounded and heavily damaged. "This is General Hayes to the Zephyrian Emperor," came the communication. "Surrender now, and your remaining crew will be spared." Emperor Zixtal was beaten, and he knew it. His mighty empire was finished. "I surrender," he said quietly. The war was over. Humanity had won. On the Liberty, the crew celebrated wildly, but the biggest celebration was in the recreation area, where Whiskers was surrounded by his human friends. "You did it, boy," Ryan said, tears in his eyes. "You saved Earth. You saved everyone." Whiskers just purred and rubbed against Ryan's legs, happy to be home with his family. 3 months later, a special ceremony was held on Earth. Whiskers became the first non-human to receive the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration. As Admiral Collins placed the medal around Whiskers' neck, she said, "This brave cat saved not just Earth, but the entire human species. We will never forget what he did." Whiskers purred loudly and tried to play with the shiny medal, making everyone laugh. Years later, cats became standard crew members on ships throughout the galaxy. The Whiskers protocol was taught at every military academy, and statues of an orange tabby cat were built on 100 worlds. But the real Whiskers lived happily on the Liberty for the rest of his life, playing with toy mice, sleeping in sunny spots, and being loved by the best crew in the galaxy. Ambassador Zektar from the Karathi species, who had been so confused by humans bringing a useless predator to war, finally understood. Humans did not bring a pet to battle, he told his people. They brought evolution's perfect hunter, and that hunter saved them all. In the end, the greatest weapon in the galaxy wasn't a laser cannon or a missile. It was love, instinct, and the bond between humans and their animal friends. The war was won by Whiskers the cat, and the galaxy was a better place because of it. 5 years had passed since the end of the Third Galactic War. The USS Liberty was now docked at Earth Station 1, the largest space station orbiting humanity's home world. The ship had become a museum, and thousands of visitors came every day to see where the famous cat had lived and worked. Whiskers was now 8 years old, still healthy and happy, but moving a bit slower than in his younger days. He spent most of his time in the recreation area that had been preserved exactly as it was during the war. Ryan Cooper, now a lieutenant commander, still took care of him every day. "Look at all these people who came to see you," Ryan said to Whiskers as another group of school children pressed their faces against the protective barrier. The orange tabby was napping in his favorite sunny spot, but he opened one green eye to look at the excited kids. A young girl raised her hand. "Is that really the cat who won the war?" Captain Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, was giving the tour personally. He smiled at the question. "Whiskers didn't win the war by himself," he explained, "but he helped us win it. He saved more human lives than any other single being in history." The children looked amazed. It was hard for them to believe that such an ordinary-looking cat could be so important. "How did he do it?" asked a boy with curly hair. "He could see things we couldn't see," Admiral Morrison replied. "The enemy had invisible spaceships, but Whiskers could always find them." Dr. Ross, now the head of the new Animal-Human Partnership Program, joined the tour. "Cats have special senses that we're still learning about," she told the children. "Whiskers used those senses to protect all of us." After the tour group left, Admiral Morrison sat down next to Whiskers. The cat immediately started purring and rubbed against Jake's hand. "How are you doing, old friend?" Jake asked softly. Amy Carter, now Commander Carter and the station's communication chief, walked into the recreation area. "Admiral, we have another request from the Galactic Council. They want Whiskers to attend the peace ceremony on Karathi Prime next month." Jake sighed. Ever since the war ended, everyone wanted to honor Whiskers. He had received medals from dozens of different planets and species. There were statues of him on 50 worlds. Books and movies had been made about his story. "I don't think he wants to travel anymore," Jake said, watching Whiskers stretch and yawn. "He's earned his retirement." The Karathi specifically requested him, Amy continued. "Ambassador Zekatar said their younglings want to meet the small predator who brought peace to the galaxy." Jake laughed. Even after all these years, Zekatar still called Whiskers a small predator. But now he said it with great respect and affection. The peace ceremony on Karathi Prime was indeed important. It marked 5 years since the Zephyrian Empire had surrendered and joined the Galactic Alliance. Former enemies were now working together to explore space and share knowledge. Emperor Zixtal, who had been allowed to keep his title but not his military power, had become one of Whiskers' biggest admirers. In his surrender speech, he had said, "We were defeated not by superior weapons, but by superior wisdom. The humans understood something we did not, that sometimes the smallest creatures have the greatest power." Dr. Ross had spent the last 5 years studying how cats could detect stealth technology. Her research had led to amazing discoveries about animal senses and quantum physics. "We've learned so much from Whiskers," she told a group of scientists visiting the Liberty. "His abilities have helped us develop new sensors that are 10 times better than anything we had during the war." Professor Alan Chen, who had studied Whiskers during the war, was now the head of xenobiology at Earth University. "The cat's brain processes quantum information in ways we never imagined possible," he explained to his students. "He's taught us that intelligence comes in many different forms." But perhaps the most important change was happening throughout the galaxy. Every human ship now had cats as crew members. The Whiskers Protocol was standard training at all military academies. And it wasn't just humans. Many alien species had also started keeping cats. The Vexians, who prided themselves on being logical and scientific, had been shocked to discover that their advanced computers couldn't match a cat's natural abilities. Science Officer Talara, who had been so confused during the war, now kept 3 cats on her research vessel. "They do not follow logical patterns," she admitted to her crew. "But their results are consistently superior to our technology. This has taught us that logic alone is not enough." The peaceful Karathi had embraced cats completely. Ambassador Zektar now traveled with a small gray cat named Little Hunter. He had learned to understand cat behavior and often consulted his feline companion when making important decisions. "The small predators see truth we cannot see," he had told the Galactic Council. "They have made us all wiser." Even the former Zephyrian worlds had requested cats for their ships and stations. The species that had once relied entirely on stealth and deception had learned to value honesty and openness. Tony Martinez, now the chief engineer of Earth Station 1, often visited Whiskers in the museum area. "You know, I thought bringing you on board was the stupidest idea ever," he told the cat while scratching his ears. "Turns out it was the smartest thing we ever did." Whiskers just purred and bumped his head against Tony's hand. He didn't understand all the fuss about what he had done. To him, he had just been protecting his family. The crew of the Liberty who fed him and loved him and gave him warm places to sleep. Ryan Cooper had married Amy Carter 2 years after the war ended. They lived in quarters near the museum area, so they could continue taking care of Whiskers. They had a daughter now, 3-year-old Sarah, who adored the famous cat. "Kitty saved everyone," little Sarah would tell visitors, her eyes wide with pride. Whiskers was very gentle with the child, letting her pet him and even dress him up in tiny hats that made the adults laugh. One evening, as the station grew quiet and the museum tours ended for the day, Jake Morrison sat alone with Whiskers in the recreation area. The cat was curled up in his lap, purring softly. "Do you know what you did, boy?" Jake asked quietly. "You didn't just help us win a war. You showed the galaxy that the best solutions often come from the most unexpected places." Outside the station's windows, ships from dozens of different species came and went peacefully. Human vessels worked alongside former Zephyrian ships. Karathi science vessels shared space with Vexian explorers. All of them had cat crew members now. The galaxy was at peace, and it would stay that way. The Whiskers protocol had become more than just a military tactic. It had become a philosophy that sometimes the smallest and most humble among us have the greatest gifts to offer. Whiskers opened his green eyes and looked up at Jake. For a moment, the old admiral could swear the cat understood everything. Then Whiskers stretched, yawned, and went back to sleep. Tomorrow would bring more visitors, more children wanting to meet the hero cat, more scientists studying his amazing abilities. But for now, Whiskers was content to sleep in the warm lap of his old friend, surrounded by the family who loved him. The war was over. The galaxy was safe. And one orange tabby cat had made it all possible, simply by being exactly what evolution had made him. A perfect hunter with an even more perfect heart.